Hi, I'm Becky Brown, and today we're going to talk about what is the story? What's the story you're telling yourself? When you think about, there's a story in the Bible about Elijah who he defeated the prophets of Baal, like hundreds of them. It was a pretty amazing story in 1 Kings, and I just am always amazed at Elijah was so confident that God was going to show up, and he did show up. Matter of fact, when they are in this kind of, standoff between the prophets of Baal and Elijah, and he tells his helper, he tells him, go and look 7 times because Elijah was sure that God was going to show up. And eventually, on the 7th time, the man comes back and he says, I saw a little cloud about the size of a man's hand. And Elijah told him, you better hurry or the rain will stop you. Elijah's story in his head was that God would show up. He had no doubt, no fear. I wonder, what would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail? Would you have that confidence to take the risk or to take the next step? Many times, the story in our head will direct our path, and we're many times unaware of the story in our head. Let's go further in this story. It's like story time with Becky, but that's, if we go further in the story, Jezebel is threatening Elijah's life. She is coming after him. And what he says, this is just a couple of, verses later from him defeating the prophets. It says, Elijah was afraid and fled for his life. He went alone in the wilderness, sat down and prayed he might die. I've had enough, Lord. Take my life, for I'm no better than my ancestors who have already died. Isn't it just like us? Many times when we've experienced fear, we get alone and we decide we've had enough. Elijah's story in his head changed with fear and despair. I wonder, what has threatened your freedom and your victory? And many times, we're not even aware that we have moved from a place of confidence and sure of our life to this place of doubt and insecurity. Let's go further with the story. Elijah goes to sleep, an angel comes to tend to him, and then God asks, Elijah, what are you doing here? He asks him twice, and 2 times Elijah responds as if God didn't already know what he was doing there. He tells him all he has done and about his despair. And at that point, God directs him and provides hope and help for his future. So then the third question is, what are you doing here? And here means in the relationship you're in the job you're in, maybe in a family situation that you're in. What are you doing? There is power in the story that you tell yourself. Just recently, I was working with a couple, and there had been a betrayal, but he was not willing to own up to his betrayal. She asked me multiple times, is it okay for me to say this? Is it wrong for him to do that? Why won't he do this? There was this constant just questioning. And I finally said to her, I believe you, I hear you, I see you. And the problem is when we get into despair, we get confused about where we are and what needs to happen. In that situation, she was expecting her husband to show up, to be honest, to be truthful, and it was causing her to wait on him for direction. And they were both becoming lost in the process. So when you think about what are you doing here, what is the story in your head that tells you where you are? It may be that you're in a job that you are not fulfilled in. You feel like God's leading you somewhere, or maybe your training is, for something else, but you just stay there because of whatever. I don't know what the story is, but that's what you have to inspect. If your story starts with the letter I, it may end in insecurity, idolatry, insignificance, isolation, intimidation, and any other I word you can think of. Our stories get so focused on us that we're not even seeing the bigger picture. You know, there's a quote from Maya Angelou who says, "The real difficulty is to overcome how you think about yourself." You know, that's the great news of the gospel, that, you know, Jesus died for you to have a new life. This is what we tell people all the time. We know that God can redeem your life. But what is the story you tell yourself in your head? Where is God in your story? And where is my heart set on anything but God? Many times, because of what we've done or what we've experienced, shame will disconnect us from God. Pain will disconnect us from God. We lose sight of the hope that we have. So I want you to think about this. Challenge yourself to look where God may be directing you, where He may be working in your life. Maybe challenge the fear and defeat that you're experiencing, and focus on what God has already promised or what He's already done in your life. Gratitude can make a huge difference in your life. And challenge complacency. Recognize and be aware of, you know, where you might be stuck in your life. You know, is there some place that you keep going around the same thing and you're not having any different results? And sometimes challenging the complacency can be the most difficult thing that you can do. You know, when Elijah started, he knew, he was confident that God would show up and do what He said He could do. And He did. But with barely even a threat, I mean, well, I guess if you're threatened with your life, that would be a little bit more intense. But with just somebody saying that she was going to come after him, he's ready to die. He forgot completely what God had done and how He had provided. So I want to challenge you today. What is the story that you have in your head? If you're struggling with addiction, it could be one of despair, that I'm already too far gone, there's no help for me, I'm just going to live out my days like this. It may be, if you're in a really difficult relationship, I've tried everything, I can't do anything more, and I'm defeated in this. It also could be, I feel lost. If you're in a situation where you feel like there's no hope or no future, whether it's a relationship, a job, just the way that you are experiencing life, it's really important for you to get a new story in your head, to know that there is hope, that it will require work, and that it is work worth doing. I hope that if you are struggling and you're feeling like you're stuck, that you'll take the risk and that you'll challenge that and get connected with a counselor, with a group, with maybe attend one of our workshops. But know that God is working on your behalf and wants you to experience an amazing life. And that is the rest of the story.